Hi everybody, welcome back. So, what's the big deal with liberals and global warming? I mean, why are we so worried about it? Why do we even think it's happening? I mean, it's all a bunch of nut jobs and secret agreements to take over. Yeah, okay. Let's try this again. First, we call it climate change now because apparently indicating that the average global temperatures are rising even as individual regions may experience colder weather is too complicated for some people. So, climate change. Let's start with something simple. So, why do liberals even think the climate is changing? Well, quite frankly, because it is, and we can measure it. Now, this isn't the same as weather, by the way. Neil deGrasse Tyson explained this so beautifully, but I'll do my best. See, weather consists of the immediate atmospheric conditions of a single place at a specific time. And it's highly variable. It's very difficult to predict. You know the story about the butterfly flaps its wings in Africa, and then in New York it rains instead of shines. But you see, climate is a long term trend on a larger scale. In Cosmos, he explains this while walking a dog along the beach. The dog represents the weather, and he represented the climate. So if you look at their path, the dog's was erratic and unpredictable. It just went this way and that way, and you could never know what was going to catch the dog's attention, which way it was going to go next. But when you zoomed out, you could see that even though the weather was erratic, it followed the overall trend of his footprints. And that's easy to examine, even predict. So here we have a lovely graph courtesy of NASA, linked to the page below. So this is the trend we are seeing. Obviously, the climate is changing. Just because it's cold today, where I am right now, doesn't change that fact. In fact, as the climate changes, we will see more extreme weather. Yes, even cold weather. In fact, Europe is in trouble. More on that later, if I don't forget. Now, there are many who are willing to admit that the Earth is warming, but point out that this has happened in the past and is perfectly natural. And that would be true, except for the rate of change. See, normally climate change on this level takes thousands of years. We're seeing it happen in 100, and that is shocking. It's unprecedented. One of the fastest climate changes ever recorded, and to learn how we can measure climate changes in the past, look up ice core samples and see how that works. So one of the fastest changes was during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum. This was a 6 degrees Celsius change over, at most, 20,000 years. Mass extinctions during this time, if anyone cares. Right now, the temperature is rising almost twice that fast. Okay, okay. So it's happening, but how could we puny humans be causing it? We're so tiny, right? Well, here's what we know for sure. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. The more CO2 in the atmosphere, the more heat we retain from the sun. And here is a graph showing CO2 levels in the atmosphere over the last 10,000 years. Remember the ice cores. Now, we also know that there is a natural cycle of CO2 release and absorption of about 750 gigatons per year. And to break that down, here is a very pretty picture from Skeptical Science. Now, you can see pretty clearly that the amount we emit through burning fossil fuels isn't huge compared to what's naturally emitted. But the amount that is naturally absorbed is roughly the same as what is naturally released. The world is having trouble keeping up with our burning, hence the graph. And here it is again, just for good measure. But wait. Didn't someone prove that all those climate scientists made it up? Well, no. What happened was someone hacked into and stole a database consisting of thousands of emails, then very carefully sorted and sifted through them to find about a half a dozen sentences that, when taken out of context, made it look that way. There is no global conspiracy to make us all drive electric cars. Such a huge conspiracy would be functionally impossible to achieve. Yeah, I think I'm going to do an episode just on the concept of global conspiracies one of these days. Could be entertaining. Um, Okay, well, maybe all of the climate scientists are on the big solar companies' payroll. Sorry, I couldn't get through that one with a straight face. Oil companies buy fake science, not solar companies. But hey, there is some good news. Even if we all stubbornly refuse to stop burning oil, that decision will be made for us, and sooner than you might think. See, estimates put the current oil reserves for the planet at about 1.3 trillion barrels. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, at the rate we're burning oil, that'll last about 40 years. And here is more info from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers. But the real question is, how much damage are we willing to do before then? But, maybe you genuinely don't care about the planet. Like many Republicans talking about welfare programs, once you got yours, who cares about anyone else? Well, here's another reason then. Oil pays for terrorism. I don't want to go into too much detail on that here because it's a bit off topic, but here is a link to an excellent story from Christian Science Monitor. Okay, so we know what's happening. We know we're at least a factor. Now, how does this translate into conservative versus liberal views? I'll break it down for you. Among steadfast conservatives, 74% say it's either not happening at all or there isn't enough information, while only 9% can apparently read. Among solid liberals, 8% say it isn't happening or there isn't enough information, while 78% accept the reality of the situation. Now that's a pretty big difference. But remember what I said in my pilot episode. Liberals want facts, while conservatives want feelings. And that's what's happening here. The facts are clear. They're easy. They're conclusive. So conclusive that 97% of climate scientists agree. 97% people. 97% of people with advanced degrees who go sleepless nights studying charts and numbers and math, foregoing a social life and living off of ramen so that the world will still be inhabitable by our grandchildren. And you have the audacity to claim that you know better? Based on what? I mean, if these were doctors telling you that you had fatal cancer, you wouldn't wait to see. You'd go get the cancer removed, okay? Quite frankly, there are only 3 reasons to deny what's happening. 1, you work for the oil industry. 2, you are religious to the point of believing that humans could never undo that which God hath wrought. Or 3, you get all your information from one of the first 2. So, what do we do? Even if we stopped all the emissions today, Earth would continue to warm for a few centuries. So, does that mean it's hopeless? Of course not. There's nothing we can do, is the cry of the coward. Things will never change is the quickest way to guarantee they don't. Maybe we can't undo the damage we have done, but we can stop it from getting worse. Solar, wind, piezoelectric, and geothermal energy can power the world. We just have to be willing to put in the effort. And doing so would boost the economy and create a whole bunch of jobs. I mean, what's the downside? But hey, pretty soon that choice will get easier. Oil prices are going to rise right along with the temperature, and pretty soon solar will be cheaper than coal. Electric cars cheaper than gas cars. I just hope I won't have to explain to my grandchildren why they have to wear a mask outside or why the equatorial regions are too hot for people to live in. I hope I won't have to explain to them what a coral reef was when I was their age, or describe the animals I saw in zoos that don't exist anymore. And if you don't think this is a government issue, then you only have to look at the billions pouring directly from the oil companies into Congress, or at the Republicans trying to bypass environmental regulations to get an oil pipeline built, or at the Florida government offices where they aren't allowed to say climate change. Someday, and that day is coming sooner than you think, the GOP is going to give a collective shrug and say, well, how are we supposed to know? So tell them. Tell them now. Vote the idiots who think money is more important than the world out of office. Because, to quote Dr. Seuss, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Oh, Europe. I almost forgot. So, Europe has a temperate climate because of this warm stream of water that flows north up along the European coast. Well, as the climate warms, that stream of warm water is getting weaker and it could actually disappear altogether. Europe is very far north. They could be looking at essentially a local ice age. So, yeah. It's time to do something. It's time to stop playing politics with the planet.